Great. So I have Ben Kirkby, founder of Ben Kirkby Design here, who has been a key design collaborator. And I use the word a key strategic design collaborator for DeepGreen Designs, especially during especially during the last 10 months and during the whole COVID phase of how businesses had to recover and manage or stabilize from the whole COVID shocks, and then get back to business as usual in today's context. So Ben, great to have you here. Why don't we talk about first the million-dollar question: what is an original design, and in the context of the COVID world? But how would you define that, Ben?
I think it's like originality has become a lot more. It's become more important, not just in COVID, but like in just on the high street in general. As the retailers are all using the same briefs or similar briefs. They're using the same factories, following the same trends. So it's kind of understandable that after a time, a lot of the products would also end up looking similar.
Yeah.
So I think where originality now is coming into it is kind of twofold. There's revolutionary originality, where that might be a new material, completely new, like innovation. Maybe it's a new product typology, say, or a rethinking of an old typology. So like sit-stand desks, for example, are a pretty good example of that. But then evolutionary originality. So a fresh take on something that's been done before, which I think is probably the part where we're focusing mostly, because again, that's where trends feature into it. But again, with that, it's still how you interpret that to give something different and to give something original.
I mean, so yeah, let's go back and talk about the furniture roots. I mean, we are in the furniture design, development, supply industry, and it's retail. So I think part of the definition of original design, to the point that you were making, it is about going back to the roots a little more, in order to have the brands learn to differentiate as well, versus just following trends and shipping similar products in the market. COVID's given us the opportunity to really, I mean, as far as DeepGreen's role is, but as far as your role is in the briefs that you've been receiving, has been about coming back to the sense of the brand, and how do we ensure that the brand can communicate their differentiation via original design into the marketplace, which is much harder today because no one's traveling. And this is something that you'll talk about, but it's much harder today. So let's talk about, then move on to the topic of how is original design evolving in today's context of the no travel COVID world, COVID impact world.
Well, I think the biggest change, there's two changes really. Like the first one being that there have been no major design fairs over the last 18 months. They're starting again. So I think there's Milan coming up, and but whereas you would have a key fair every 1 or 2 months where you can top up that creativity, see new things, see different things. That's
you could get inspired. The whole travel and meeting the industry and get inspired.
But it's so there's more reliance now on the blogs, and I guess what you see, what you have seen in the past, and how that could be reinterpreted. Maybe it wasn't right 2 years ago, but now it is. But then I think it also there's quite a lot of reissues coming out. So I think it's how then you can repurpose or again reimagine something that has been done before, but in a fresh way. So if we take mid-century modern, for example, it's very, very popular. It's but there's so many ways that it has been done the same. Why not look maybe a different route of mid-century modern? Find a different designer to get inspired by, because there's plenty of them. And just take a different route. And I think then it's picking that route to go down is heavily sort of defined by your brand. What might be right for one. Oh, there goes the thing.
Right. And Ben, coming to the point of inspiration, I think pre-COVID, so let's talk about the 2019 world.
Mm.
Travel and trade shows was the unconscious inspiration strategy. It wasn't really deliberate, but we talk about going to shows. What we really meant was we go to check out product, we go to get inspired, we go to meet the industry, right? But in the post 2019 world, which is the COVID world, I think we have to be a lot more deliberate and intentional about how we get that inspiration. And I think a lot of what the first step is, again, coming back to the original topic, has been brand roots. Who are we? What are we? Furniture roots. What can we make? What can we build that can relate to the brand? And then I guess it makes sense to come back to the reissues, because that's who you are. That's what we're known for. For us, it's been really interesting to look at the brand in a deeper context versus trying to find something new to offer to the client, but look at the brand in a deeper context. And that's what we have been successful at. Success for us is defined by the take up and the selection rate by our client brands, to how we have approached their original design, from either our white label, which is clients taking our existing designs and putting their brand name on it, to the point of the original design side, which is exclusive design for the client brand that is globally exclusive for them.
I think it's especially with regards to originality, that's where it becomes a very nice challenge. So there's the two ways. You either get the dream bit where you provide them something original, they love it, and they know it's right for them, we know it's right for them, and they run with it. But then I guess the more exciting side, and the bit where you have to prove that you know that their brand as well as they do, is when you do get it wrong. And maybe it's not quite right, or it's, it needs that tweak. It's then, how can we either assure them that it is right, or how do we change it so that it is right?
Yeah, because we
don't get it right all the time. It's
correct, and it's that point of the positive data points and the negative data points, but the negative give you as much information as the positive. What not to do versus what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
It gets clearer.
Yeah, we're only human at the end of the day, but we try to get it right most of the time. But yeah, there are times when it just doesn't quite work. But not to say that it's wrong. It's just
and
right.
that is part of the creative process. Let's just say it that way.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And Ben, moving on. How has COVID changed the process of product design for buyers and suppliers? So now we're getting into the nitty-gritty.
Well, like the actual design process hasn't changed. I think, I still, pre-COVID, I would still get my inspiration or get that reference, sit, draw, model, render, present. That hasn't changed. But what has changed is the actual presentation of how do you sell an image, an idea, a vision to somebody who's the other side of the world through a dodgy Wi-Fi connection. And I think that's where we've had to be, everybody has had to improvise and get innovative with how they are presenting that information, whether it is renders or whether it is, further on down the line. How can you conduct a sample review with a buyer and a technologist who can't sit and touch that product? How can you confirm that the quality is right when they can't see it themselves? I think we've had to, it's not been easy, but I think we've adapted well to that. But it has lost a lot of the excitement, and the spark, I think, has just been removed by that. You can't replace that sort of sitting across the table from a buyer, like just discussing, are we going to go for this dark stain or should it be this sort of burnt look? Like that kind of, that's gone. And then those magic moments in the factory where you're looking at what looked like a great thing on paper and you see it in front of you and you know that it's not quite right. And it's then, how do you develop that with factory technician, buyer, designer. How do you then turn that into what you all think it should be? And you know, that's gone. And it's a shame that that's gone. But then on the other hand, there's no long flights. There's no Baijiu with factory owners, and I don't miss that. I really don't miss that. So it's
and there's
there's been,
no
yeah,
and there's
swings and roundabouts. It's
yeah and there's no we've traveled 4 hours and there's not much happening with the factory as well, which a lot of it used to happen. So I think again, the 2019 world, which was the old way of doing things, and where we're at now, communication in the product design process is where we've got to be, again, more intentional about it versus just jumping on a flight and assuming that, you know what, everything's in my head. I'm going to get to the factory and I'm going to understand and see what's going on and just make things happen. But when I get to the factory, so this whole point of the onus of the preparation comes back. While we have lost maybe some of the magic, but I think looking back, if we were really honest, I think a lot of the process was quite inefficient.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of the process was quite inefficient. And again, it's just bringing us back to the roots of the sense of what is product design and how prepared do we need to be. And I think those companies that are intentional about their communication, intentional about their preparation, and that's where the focus needs to be. So let's say, how has original design changed? Is being intentional about the inspiration part, but how is the product development change today? To being intentional about the communication and the preparation part. I think what we'll see is, of course, and everyone's already doing this, and look at us here, you're in Shanghai, I'm in Hong Kong. Neither of us, I mean, maybe you've had a little more opportunity to travel, but we haven't in Hong Kong. And the creative challenge for us as a business, heavily involved in product development, is how do we get closer to that magic moment, but within the tools that we have in our hands today? And I know we were talking about the basics of swatch books. We have to start being really clear about that, you know, and not just sending small pieces over, but this has to be presented well, the swatch books. But we also really have to be smarter about how we communicate capabilities, which is trickier, because that's stuff that you go see in the factory with, right? Because even for us working on the creative process, right, on the product design and product development process, how does, you know, with our teams all over China, all over Vietnam, how do we get the strategic designer aligned with what we have and what they can work with, right?
Well, yeah, it is, you know, it's gone from being people who you would meet on a regular basis and you knew very well to, you know, say how the current setup with DeepGreen, for example, there's people in the UK, Hong Kong, Vietnam, South China, Central China, East China, whatever. I've never met some of the people in the like South China office, never met Ben in the UK office, never met most of the clients. So it's how can you, and then that's, you know, they've also never met people here. So it's, how do you still keep all of that and build that, you know, the relationship side of it? Because, you know, at the end, whilst at the end of the day, we're selling furniture, we're selling product, we're selling this, but it's much more than that, really. You know, you're still going to have that relationship. And I think part of where this will have, this whole COVID situation will have made it better is, it's going to put more emphasis on trusting relationships, I think, and knowing that you have, whether it is just a supplier you can trust, when you can't get your containers out, having somebody who's there, like or you need to do a good factory review, but you can't get over to see it, having a supplier who you can trust to handle that for you. I think it's proven that it works, and then, you know, maybe people will be a lot less willing, not necessarily less willing, but less quick to jump on a plane to sort these problems out, knowing that actually you don't have to be gone for a week from your family. You can. I
mean,
do it on a call.
Yeah, I don't think. I think a lot of the 2019 work that we used to do, I would argue as much as 60 to 70% of that was travel based, even if travel opens, won't happen again. Because we realized how inefficient it was. So let's get to the last question, and which is, tips for the home brand, the retail brand. What are specific things they can check to find out if they are getting an original design? How do you think, as a retailer, how would they approach this concept of saying, yes, this design is original that I'm receiving, when they're even with working with designers?
I think that the easiest way of doing that is with the briefing process, is to be very, very clear about what it is that you expect, but in relation to your brand. So rather than, we are looking for an oak cabinet that looks like this, it should be accompanied by an overview of what retailer A's brand sort of style is, what their customer is, because at least then, even if you're buying off-the-shelf pieces from a factory, it's still going to be original for your company, rather than just being, 10 factories, we need an oak collection from each of you, present it. I'm not saying that it works that way, but I think there will be, again, to go back to that first point, originality when you're all using the same suppliers, the same trends, and the same sort of, it's going to be, similar products. So it's going to be more emphasis on making sure that your brand is at the heart of it.
Correct.
So that could be by working with a supplier, or I think the idea of suppliers is hopefully going to go, and it's going to become partners rather than just a supplier, like buyer relationship. But working with a partner who not only understands you as well as you understand yourself, but will come with those external insights that you probably overlook from being on the inside. We've had instances where we have proposed things to a client that it's, when you then explain why you're proposing it to them, it's made them think, like, actually, we hadn't looked at it this way. And I think it's good. It's definitely a good weapon to have, would be a supplier partner who knows you and is interested in what you do, not just interested in having a product.
And Ben, I also want to touch on the topic that it's a language that you and I use on the high design value versus the low design value. And I think there's a reality check that businesses and companies have to understand, and designers too have to understand, in this whole original design world. We use this word copy, we use this word inspiration. Those are two sides of the same coin in many respects. And you see this in technology, you see this everywhere. And you see this in I think what happens is also there's that rate of innovation where things become obsolete. So that's the whole technology world. What was original, you've got 2 months to sell it, and then there's something better, faster, cheaper that's happening quickly. In the design world, in the product design, and in the furniture world, my experience has seen, even when you look at solid Danish design, solid wood tables with metal legs, you put 5 of the top retail brands or furniture brands together, and you show their ranges or their products from the last 5 to 10 years, and you bring in somebody who has no experience with furniture. So that's the end consumer, let's say, that they're not deep into the furniture industry. A lot of them will think that these products look similar. Maybe there's a 20% difference, correct? But what does stick out, to your point, is of original design, and especially in this COVID world, is that the sense of the brand and that story has to come out together with the product. And that's what's going to differentiate it. Now, we aren't talking about copies here. We're not talking about like a photocopy of a product. That will happen. Again, but in the home retail world, I don't think anyone's daft enough to go and just say, I'm going to copy this product and put it out there, and then they're going to get the legal letter because it's just an immediate copy, right? But then when you go to the high design value, we've had a couple of successful ranges. Cake Desk, the Barber range. We we were one of the first to use the tambour as a full range, as the tambour design feature. And this was about 7 years ago. But yeah, 2 or 3 years later, people started catching on. And, that's become, and a lot of people could say, oh, they've been copied. I said, no, you've inspired a style. We were inspired by a style too. We've just picked up on a style and did it tastefully, right? And that's, it's a compliment as well, right? So it's like how I think people have to also understand the context of what is an outright copy versus the story and the original design that you're bringing out with the product. People are repurposing, they're reissuing. As you're saying, mid-century modern is coming back in such a beautiful way because the classics, they want their homes to look beautiful, smart. You're spending a lot more time in the homes. So there's a reason for all that. That's our Greta range right there, right? That's what the original brief for that, right, was just hardcore Danish, but can fit in almost any household in the world, right? There's nothing magical about it, but it's how it's come out. That's adding to it.
Yeah, I would say, to go back to the comment about Barber and the timbre doors, that wasn't a trend, really.
Correct.
I don't think it, maybe it never has been, but there is, I think, real strength in doing something that's right for your brand, regardless of the trends. Because ultimately, trends pass, they come and go. But something that stands the test of time, mid-century modern is a great example of that. Is, maybe at the time it was inspired by a trend or what was relevant at the time. But the fact that it is still relevant today means that it has gone far beyond that. And I think that's where trends are good. Trends are good for direct, for
correct. And there's space for all of this. Yes, there's space for all of this.
Sure.
Yes.
But I think at the same time, it should be more important than following the trends is following what is right for your brand. I
think that summarizes that beautifully, Ben. I think you've just hit the nail on the head. Exactly. What's more important is what summarizes for the brand. Totally. Thanks, Ben. That was really interesting. Appreciate that.
Welcome.